Hey, what's up? Chris Martinez here. I'm the host of Operation Agency Freedom, and today I have Brian Niebler, who used to be the owner of Roofer Marketers. What an amazing name. They got roofermarketers.com. So he used to be the owner. So you might be wondering, like, what is he doing now? He sold that agency, which is amazing. And so he's going to be coming on the show today to talk about his exit and the process to where he was actually working for the new owners for about a year. And he's going to be talking about all that stuff. And he's also going to be shedding some light on some of the new ventures that he's looking at starting or buying. Just a really, really nice guy. And so you're going to hear a story of how a nice guy came in, started an agency from nothing, grew it, did the exit. Now he's on to the next thing. I think this is a pretty cool story. Anytime that I think that we get to hear from somebody who achieved that dream of building the agency and doing the exit, we all learn something. I definitely learned something. So with that being said, let's head over and listen to what Brian has to say. Hey, everybody. Very excited. We have got Brian Niebler here. He is a man he's got a new direction in life as of 3 weeks ago, which is really exciting. We're going to talk all about that. So,
Nice
hey,
to see
Brian,
you.
how's it going, man? What's new?
It's going well. How about you? How are you doing?
Things are doing well. The weather is getting warmer here in San Diego. It's been
Good.
cold.
It's getting warmer here in Minnesota too, so that's always a good thing.
Nice. So I definitely want to talk about I would say, the dream that most agency owners have is, you build this business and then eventually you're able to do the exit. But first, I want to get some background on you. So you're obviously in Minnesota. And did you always know that you wanted to run a digital marketing agency? This is like a loaded question.
Chris, since birth, I knew.
Come from a long line of digital marketing agency
Yeah,
owners.
yeah.
Now, how did you
No,
get into this crazy, crazy industry?
yeah, so out of college, I was always doing stuff on the side, playing around. SEO was my big thing. I'd
Hmm.
work on websites, build up affiliate websites, stuff like that. I ended up getting just a regular job out of college, but I would do
Hmm.
his stuff on the side. And then I think it was my good friend who actually owned an agency up here in Minnesota, and he needed some help, so he hired me on. That was my first experience in dealing with clients and everything like that.
What year
Uh,
was that, or around what year was that?
oh, that was probably around 2014, 2015
Okay, cool.
ish.
Yeah.
I was there for a year or two with him, and then I decided it was time for me to go on my own way and try it out for myself. So for the next, I would say, 2 years or so, I was running my own little thing. I'm sure most of your listeners know how that goes, the ups and downs of
Yeah.
the one-man band agency world. But then it was about 2000s, I think it was the beginning of 2018.
Hmm.
I joined a mastermind
Hmm.
about lead gen. It was a pay per lead
Okay.
mastermind, and it was ended up being a failed mastermind. The guy actually scammed us out of all of our money. But the good thing that came out of that was I actually ended up meeting my business partner, Jim Lean,
Hmm.
who I realized was also in Minnesota, right near me, and we were really the only people doing the work in the mastermind. So that's
Hmm.
kind of how we met up, and we got coffee, and kind of the rest was history. Like, oh, we should do something together. From there, we kind of had an idea. We knew where we wanted to go with it. It's like I think we decided we need to focus on one industry. We'd seen it all over the place, and I'm
Hmm.
sure many of your listeners know 2018 is when Roofer Marketers was born.
So why did you guys decide to go after roofing? Like, did you have a background in roofing, or was there like numbers that said like, hey, this is one that just flip open the phone book and you're like, yeah, this one looks good.
My first client that I had at my prior agency, one that actually I worked with my friend with, and he actually let me continue their marketing over there at Prominent Construction. We were doing well with them. I had a great success story with them. We were
Hmm.
crushing it with their marketing, and we just decided if there's a way to scale this now, we can use them kind of as our initial case study and testimonial, and they were happy to give it. And we decided that was the best direction. So we went with it.
Nice. So what year was it that you guys you partner with Jim and then you guys officially decide roofing is the direction to go? What year was that?
It was October of 2018.
Nice. October 2018. So 5.5 years ago, more or less.
5.5 years. Time flies.
So when you're getting started, like part of the issue is trust, right? Because there's so many scammy digital marketing people, and you experienced that with the mastermind group, but so many
Yeah.
scammy digital marketing scumbag agency people out there. Everybody's been burned. 2018 is not as bad as 2024, but still everybody has been burned. And you guys don't have a ton of results or case studies from successful clients that you've worked with. Like, how do you start to build considering that there isn't a lot of testimonials in this particular niche?
Yeah, I mean, it's the question that everybody asks, right? Like everybody's been burned by their marketing agency, it feels like.
Yep. Yep.
I think the biggest thing, Jim and I were on par with a couple things I would say in the beginning. One, we're both in the Midwest. We're nice guys. We try to be at least and try to be as transparent as possible to people. And I think people kind of latch onto that genuineness. And I think especially in our marketing and just talking, building relationships, that kind of moved over. The other thing is Jim and I knew what we wanted to do from the beginning. We both agreed we wanted to eventually exit. So
Mm-hmm.
we also knew from the very beginning like what we needed to do to get there, and that was to build up our brand. And we figured, I mean, brand is everything, and I feel like it's become more and more said these days. Back in 2018, there's all those, I mean, it still is, but I feel like it's become more of a signature thing that marketing is synonymous with brand, and you hear it all the time. And that's kind of the approach we took in building a trust. Like in the beginning, to be honest, we used prominent for everything, but we used them in a way that we got our name out there in so many different angles that I
Mm-hmm.
think people just couldn't stop seeing us.
Mm-hmm.
Was the problem, or not the problem? It was a good problem for us, but I mean, we still had people coming in the last year that have been following us, our marketing, for the last 4 years, and finally decided to become a client of ours. So it's that kind of, with synonymous of like our name being out there,
Mm-hmm.
and just continuously giving education, 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 value, value, value.
Mm-hmm.
And I think eventually it all kind of came back. We saw that hockey stick in growth,
Nice.
especially when the kind of COVID hit and everything
Right.
kind of went,
You had to go
went
online.
sideways. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
So, what were some of the big milestones, like looking back on the business, like what were some of those big milestones where you're like, man, like this thing is gonna work? Like what were some of those key moments that you remember where you kind of recognize that this is gonna go well?
I would say, I mean, in the beginning, I would say it was rough. Like the first year, we had a lot of ups and downs. We got some clients, we lost some clients. There was a period there where we didn't make a sale for 4 months, I think. And I think I
Wow.
was pointing the finger at Jim. I was like, "What are you doing over there, man? Like, come on." But everything just started to click all of a sudden. I think it all relates to we were doing all this marketing in
Hmm.
all of these different lead sources. So we wrote a book about it. Jim started his podcast. We were running Google ads. We were doing all our SEO. We were kind of practicing what we preach,
Hmm.
which was, you need to become the best known roofing company in your area. It is not about just using Facebook ads or just using Google ads. You need to do all of these things. You need to get
Right.
your name out there. And that was kind of our pitch to, it's, what we practiced, what we preached, and what we were selling as our packages. We were doing everything for them. And I think that's what really propelled our growth kind of in year two, is everybody saw us and they saw what we were doing. And we were just out there constantly. And I think that's what really, did it for us.
Now, in terms of team, like as you're starting to build up the agency, typically there's a need to bring on more people. And what was the team size when you got to around year two?
Probably wasn't big. I think we had, probably an account manager. We had our operations manager, and then, some web developers. Just maybe one person in each department.
Okay.
Fairly small.
Okay. And then, like one of the challenges that people also have when they're starting, myself included, is paying yourself, right? It's like, I got to pay myself to survive. And like, I got married, it'll be 3 years ago in October when I started the business in 2012, my business in 2012. I was single, like, and
Yep.
no kids, nothing like that. So I kept my expenses very, very low. My commitments were very, very low. But you as an owner, like you still have to be able to pay yourself something. And you're always trying to figure out, how do you balance, like, what do I pay myself? What do I reinvest back into the company? With a partner, how did you guys decide, how to balance those expenses?
What I would say is, and this is where it comes back to choosing a partner. This is why I think Jim and I worked well together, is we were
Hmm.
always on the same page. It wasn't like I need to bring in a bunch of money and he's going to save money. No, we both kind of knew, like I said in the beginning, we want to exit at some point, so we're
Yeah.
going to reinvest as much as we can into this business. I will, if I were to do it again, I would say I probably would have taken out more for myself in the beginning, run something more along that profit first line, if you guys have heard of that.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, I mean, we didn't make a lot at all, and because we were really focused on just growth, 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 scaling.
So
But
when you
there
say
was a
not
point
making a
where
lot, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing. Like my first year in business, I didn't take anything out of the company.
I
And
don't
then
think we
this
took anything out that first year either.
and then the
I would
second
say.
year, I think I got my salary up to like $30,000 for the year,
Yeah,
something
I
like
mean, we
that.
were several thousand maybe, but that, like I said, you know, profit first, right? I mean, if it's something I would do again, I would definitely focus on that. But I think it was just because we were so laser focused on
Hmm.
scaling this thing that it's like we'll minimize our expenses as best as possible, and we'll just grow this thing as fast as we can.
Great. So let's fast forward to, I guess 2021, 2022, 22. Where was the company at in terms of like team size and approximate revenue?
2020, I believe our big growth came in probably towards the end of 2021. That's where things just kind of scaled off the charts, right? And you
Uh-huh.
hear it probably in agencies all the time where, it's to the point where the sales are so much that it's hurting bottlenecking operations, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time.
I'm sure you hear that all the time. But yeah, and especially, come the end of 2021, especially in the roofing, everybody's done for the season, so everyone's looking at that next year. And come January, February, we were exploding in growth. We doubled the agency in that year. We went above seven figures and then the multi seven figures into 2022
Per month
and
or per year?
per year, per
Per year.
year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
Still
just double
great.
the size.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I mean, it was a wild growth and but I think it's all clicked at that point, right? Like I said, is that hockey stick growth. It was slow and then all of a sudden it accelerated. And I think it was just because everyone all of a sudden knew who we were.
Right. So 2022, companies doubled basically from the year prior. And when do you and Jim start having the conversation about maybe we should start looking at doing the exit? Or was that even part of the conversation back then?
I would say it wasn't even part of it at that
Okay.
point. Even up to our sale, it wasn't part of it, I don't think, just because it came up so suddenly. I mean, we had always talked about it, but we were thinking, maybe several years down the road. We had been approached before, earlier in
Hmm.
2022, I believe it was, and we thought about it, but in our minds, like we didn't have enough to make it worth it if we were going to sell.
You
Um,
mean the offer that they would have made? Yeah.
yeah, and we just weren't making enough at that point in
Right.
terms of
Right.
EBITDA and stuff like that. So it was, something that didn't come up, and we had a couple people that were interested that were inquiring, and that's
Hmm.
where we kind of just, took the meetings just to see how things go, and kind of one thing led to another, really.
Now, your sale, from what I understand, it was a little bit unique in that it was more of like a strategic buyer and not necessarily another agency, correct? It wasn't another agency or even a private equity firm that was buying up all the agencies. Was it, if I'm correct, was it like a software company or something that was interested in
Yeah.
you guys?
Yeah, it's public knowledge now. I mean, the job Nimbus, who's one of the largest, is the largest CRM in the
Mhm.
roofing industry. Yeah, they were interested in buying us, and it just made sense to them to get the Morgan agency
Right.
specific.
Now, no, so the next question is then why? Because I don't think a lot of agency owners think about this, right? So I think when we talk to agency owners about doing an exit, they're typically thinking, well, there's this other bigger agency that would want to buy me. Like I'm in the dental space, I've got, 2 million in revenue. There's this other bigger agency that does 20 million in revenue that's also works with dentists. So they're usually just thinking about that, industry specific buyer. And some of the things that we tell our clients also is like, hey, like you need to expand because maybe there's somebody that has a complementary service that would want to buy you, which is, it seems like that's exactly what happened with you guys, right?
Yep, that's exactly what happened. Strategic buyers, those are the ones you got, keep on your radar because, if they're likely motivated to add to their service offering.
Now, were you using their software before, or was there some sort of natural integration, or how did they, yeah, how did they make
No,
that?
I mean, a lot of our roofing clients use Job Nimbus as their CRMs.
Hmm.
So I mean, that was a natural, you know, easy integration when it came down to that. But that's about the gist of it.
Okay. So you have the meeting with them in 2022. Is that when that kind of took place?
Yeah, late 2022, I believe it was. Yes.
Okay. And then when did they actually give you like an LOI, or when did you guys say like, okay, let's actually see if this is going to happen?
I believe it was like December of 2022, I want to
Okay.
say. Yeah, right towards the end of the year.
So that's like a nice little Christmas present. They're like, hey, like, we might actually get paid
Yeah,
some money for
exactly.
this thing.
Exactly.
And you don't have to tell me the exact number, and if you don't feel comfortable, but like around what was the revenue, like the run rate when you guys started engaging in like around December 2022, what were you guys at monthly or annual run rate?
Honestly, I don't know exactly, but we were in multiple seven figures. Probably between two and three
Okay.
for the year run rate. I mean, whatever that is monthly.
Yeah, so 2 million run rate is 167, 3 million is 250. So in between
Yeah,
that 167,
yeah, around.
250.
I think we were around 200 ish.
So
Um,
now, like you having an outside company that I'm guessing that they're much bigger. I don't know if they're a publicly traded company or not, but they're
no, they are not.
okay. So probably a little bit more sophisticated than us little guys, right?
Yeah,
And so
a little bigger.
they're putting the microscope on your company. What
Yep.
were some of the things that they brought up? And you do not have to tell me any of the specific numbers, but like, what were some of the things that they were asking about? You're like, man, I didn't even think about that. Or things that you thought that, like this would make our company so much more valuable that they were like, that doesn't matter. Or like, what were some of the learning things that you experienced going through that process?
I mean, without giving specifics, obviously, because I can't for legal reasons, but I would say the biggest thing that, I mean, and with any agency, I mean, why are people acquiring you? Probably for your customer base.
Yeah.
And they want minimal risk when it comes to that. So what does minimal risk mean? It means, how long have the customers been around? What's your
Hmm.
retention rate? And then, are they in contracts? Are they going to be there for a while? I would say those are the three things that I think we focused on it, and obviously you should as a marketing agency, but I don't think you realize how important that is when it comes to someone looking to purchase their company because I mean, they're trying to minimize risk as much as possible.
Yep.
So, for those of you that are doing month-to-month contracts out there, and that's going to be a tough sell for a lot of these guys
Right.
if they're interested. So client retention, obviously, I mean, we're marketing agencies, we know that's number one thing, but that is the number one thing that you just need to hunker down and really figure out when it comes to running your agency.
Now, did they ask you anything about cost of acquisition? Because that's another thing that I've heard that eventually, or that buyers will look at is like, how are you acquiring new clients and what does it cost you to acquire a new client?
I would say, and to be honest, like I don't think we really knew that information very well. And that's just because I think like I said, we had such a foothold in the market and just people knowing who Roofer Marketers was. I mean, we
Hmm.
did everything. We were at every trade show. We had the podcast, we did the book, we were on every marketing channel. So I think that kind of factored into the play that it was just like, we didn't need to have all that information. Not that it's
Hmm.
not important, but with what we were looking at, like I don't think we were able to give that specific information from what I remember.
Okay. And then in terms of EBITDA, like, can you give us just a ballpark of what the multiple was?
I probably can't, but it was
Okay.
enough that, we were ready to move on to the next thing. So
So you and Jim basically had a number and you were guys like, hey, if they give us this number, we're out, right? Is that kind of like how it worked?
pretty much, yeah.
That's awesome. Actually, I don't know if you've ever read the book Built to Sell. I think it's Built to
Yeah.
Sell.
Yeah.
And I think
Great
in
book.
that book they say, take the number, write it down on a piece of paper, put it into an envelope, put it in your desk drawer,
Yep.
and then
Yep.
open it back up because
I don't know if we had that for sure, but it was definitely in our heads.
in your
So
heads, right? Well, that's one of the things that we see with our agencies that are super successful that we work with is they do have that number. And I think you're lying to yourself if you say, I'm never going to sell this business, right?
yeah,
Because there is definitely a number, right? Like
for
I
sure.
typically ask
Everyone's
people,
got a price, right?
how much would, at what price do you become a seller? That's kind of the number. That's the way that I like to ask people. The second thing is you're going to get tired of doing this. Like this business is freaking hard, man.
It is, man.
The late nights,
It is
the
a
ups
roller
and downs,
coaster.
the staff issues, the client issues, like it is really, really taxing on you
It is.
mentally and physically, right? So eventually you're gonna want to do something else.
Age 10 years in the last 2 years,
Well, we say that digital marketing is like dog years, right? So like 1 year in real world is
Yeah,
like 7 years in digital marketing. So I get it.
exactly.
So but that's awesome that you guys were able to get that. Looking back on that whole experience, because you sold, I think it was in early or mid 2023. Is that correct? So it's about a
Yeah, I think it
year.
was around April of 2023.
Okay, around a year. So you sold the company, right? They usually will bring you on, right, to stay on with the transition.
Mhm.
And then either there's formally or informally a date when you'll say, all right, I'm out, which you just did
Yeah.
recently, right?
Yeah, yeah. It was my time to move on, and yeah, it was. I mean, Job Nimbus is great. They got the roofer marketers under. I mean, they're doing great things. I mean, we grew a lot in the last year. So yeah, it's just you get to a point where it's like time for the next thing, and that's where I'm at.
So looking back over the previous year, what were some of the biggest things that you learned, like after the dotted line is signed, you guys get your probably your first check, and then now you're working for somebody else. What were some of the big things that you learned after the sale went through and now you're working for this bigger company?
I mean, it's definitely a change when you're in a bigger company, that's for sure. You realize like how much more important. I mean, not that they aren't important, but metrics are
Hmm.
huge, right? Like I mean, you got to adhere to your metrics. You got to do whatever we can to hit those metrics, which rightfully so. I mean, they have goals in mind, and we need to do whatever we need to in that more people, more there's just more going on.
Yeah.
And but it's more structured too compared to what we were. We were just growing at that point. I mean, and so in the transition, it's a matter of really them understanding our business, our understanding theirs, and finding a way that everything can work together at the same time and growing at the very same time. So there's a
Yeah.
lot to it. I wouldn't say it's easy at all, but that's just what you got to do when you sell your business.
Well, we've got a few more minutes left, so I just want to ask you a couple more questions, and then we'll get you out of here. I think you said it's like 3 weeks that you've left the company, and now you're kind of hanging out. Like, do you have a plan of something that you want to do next? Like, start another agency, maybe?
No real plan yet. We're tossing around ideas, probably looking to go back into the, entrepreneurial world,
Yeah.
start a company, buy a company. I'm not really sure yet, but I will be continuing to, work with who we've been working with, seven-figure agency before, coaching other agency owners. And I'd love to continue to help people that, we're in the same problems and having the same issues that I had over the last 5 years and helping them get through that. So that's definitely one of my passions still right now.
Nice. And I mean, you do need to take some time and drive around in your multiple Lamborghinis, right? You got like
Yeah,
seven colors,
yeah,
one for each day of
totally.
the week. You got
Yeah,
to
exactly.
have
Not
enough
a good
time to do
choice
that.
for, Minnesota, though. We only get to use it for 3 months, and then you gotta put it back in the garage.
Put some 4x4 tires on that thing and some
Yeah,
chains.
yeah,
You'll be
yeah,
fine. You'll
exactly.
be fine. Now, I want to just touch upon the buying a new business. Do you think it will be a digital business, or are you actually looking at getting into more like brick and mortar or service business? Because something that I've been looking at is actually investing in another company as well, not completely outside of digital marketing. Because maybe with you, like you see what your clients were doing and their margins and how much money they could make and stuff like that. And like, I was talking to a buddy of mine in a little mastermind that I'm in, and he runs a termite business. And I'm like, oh my God,
Yeah.
how are the margins so good? How are you making so much money with zero marketing? So,
Yeah, right.
maybe it's a shiny
And
object,
not
but
and not to say the margins aren't great in the agency world. I think they're some of the best. But yeah, I mean, I'm probably looking to do something a little different. I mean, I've done the agency thing for a while now. I think the set of skills that you acquire from running a marketing agency and knowing all that
absolutely.
stuff can be applied to like what you're saying, like a termite or a home services business or any type of business like that. I think there's a lot of opportunity there and that's I think what's so valuable about our skills as marketers is that
Yeah.
we really can go into any business that has some sound operations and be able to scale it up, knowing what we know. So
Yeah, if you can make that phone ring,
exactly,
especially at the beginning, and that's like over half the battle, you know?
exactly, yeah.
Yeah, awesome, man. Any final tips for people that are interested in selling their agency soon or one day? Something that you wish that you knew or considered looking back that you would like to pass on that knowledge to our listeners?
I would say the biggest thing that you can do is position one, focus on client retention. That
Hmm.
is the number one thing. do whatever you need to do to keep clients happy and get them results. Because in the end, that's all that's they really care about, and that's
Mhm.
all the buyer will really care about.
Yep.
But in growing the company, I think the biggest thing is create a culture where people want to come work for you. You're not going out and, putting job posts out there. You should have enough people that want to come work for you, that word gets around and that people are referring and your employees are referring. If you can do that, you will be very successful in any business, but in the agency world like we were.
Love it, man. We could create a whole webinar just on that topic, right?
It's true.
How to get your dream employees to come want to work for you.
Yeah,
See the headline now.
exactly.
Well, thanks so much, Brian, for being here and sharing all of your knowledge. Congratulations again on achieving the dream, right? Exiting, getting the number you wanted. Now off to live the good life, man.
Appreciate it, Chris.
All right,
Take
brother.
care.
Good job.
Yep.
Hey, thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, it would mean so much to me if you would subscribe to the podcast and also share it with friends, family, and basically anyone you know who will find the same value in this episode as you do. So, to get the latest from me, then let's connect on social media on the Facebooks at facebook.com/Dude Agency or Instagram at dudeagency.io. Then you can also find us on LinkedIn, YouTube, and even TikTok. Yes, I'm that cool. We are on TikTok. Finally, go to our website at dudeagency.io, where you can see all of our other episodes of Operation Agency Freedom. Register for live trainings on how to run a highly profitable agency, and you can see exactly how we help marketing agencies fix their operations and scale to 8 figures and beyond. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you next time.